Okay guys, how are we doing? This is Colum and tonight we're gonna go through top 10 anime for haters of anime in general. Okay, so I made this list because of the fact that I've got so many recommended anime that I want to show off to people, but people don't want to listen to me because of the fact that they've been recommended shit anime in the past, or just anime that follow the classic tropes and get creepy, or just, go nowhere in the end and have like 600 episodes plus, mostly filler. So cut down on all that kind of stuff. Everything should be self contained. There's one or two cartoons, actually just one. Threw it in at the start just to be sneaky, but it's in there for a very good reason. So here we go with our top 10 anime for people that hate anime. Number 10 on the list is The Last Airbender, Avatar. Okay, so Avatar is absolutely amazing. Cartoon, not really an anime, but at the same time, any form of animation is good for me. This has a lot of whimsical fights, a lot of funny elements to it, but from the second season onwards, I would argue that the show gets a lot darker. It keeps some kind of funny tones and stuff like that, but it also kind of shows a lot more progression in the characters, which I love. I love to see like training montages and stuff like that. But again, they do keep the quirkiness about it. The story is awesome. The characters are absolutely badass. You've got people like Toph, Katara. You've got Sokka, who's just kind of the comedian, but over time he develops his own skills as a non-bender. Now, there's so much in this second season onwards as well that I just think visually it's just amazing. As a fan of animation in general, I would wholeheartedly recommend this to any of my friends, and a lot of my friends have gotten interested in animation just through having watched this growing up or having gone back to it one way or another. So we go with my number 9 recommended on anime. It's going to be Berserk. Now, the reason I'm putting it here in the late numbers is because of the fact that it's a bit all over the place, and if you really want the full story, you're going to have to read the manga. But otherwise, if you love action, sword fighting, blood, gore, dark fantasy, this is definitely worth a watch. And absolutely, like I said before, if you enjoy reading mangas, comics, anything like that, I'd highly recommend checking it out. You could find the source online, or of course you could support and buy the manga editions if you have a small fortune at your disposal. In my opinion, you have two options to watch Berserk. Okay, number one would be the 1997 anime that you're going to see, and then the other is the short films that came out much later, where they condensed the entire series into 3 films. They added more stuff from the manga, but then they also cut some stuff out, so it's a real give and take. But if you've seen the 97, or maybe the animation's a bit too rough for you, which I love by the way, you could go on to the CGI films, and they are really good. I just not a massive fan of CGI, but this has done it so much better than the 2016 versions of Berserk and the later that followed. So absolutely check out Berserk if you get the chance. Number 8, Parasite the Maxim. Now, I really like this anime because it follows the main character, who's kind of a dweeb or a bit of a nerd. His name is Shinichi Izumi. He gets infected by a parasite which was meant to take over his brain, but it accidentally took over his arm, and subsequently it failed its mission, but now it's kind of given him improved agility, reflexes, strength. It's a short self-contained story, so that's one of the main reasons I'd recommend it. It does have an ending, and sure, that's what you want, isn't it? So it's just him trying to balance between this new life and his parasite companion. At the same time, there's other parasites in this world, and they all have a directive, which is to essentially just feast on humans. That Shinichi is the human element. He's trying to essentially keep people safe and not endanger lives when possible, whereas these parasites, on the other hand, they don't care about being exposed necessarily. I mean, some of them will, but at the beginning, like, they're willing to like just kill him in broad daylight, with no kind of consideration for what would happen next, which is just something that I actually really like. A dark tone to the anime, just kind of keep it bounded in some form of reality. This is just, it's got gore, it's got action, it's got a nice story to it. There's some very kind of heartfelt moments in this anime as well. Got a good mix, a good blend. Okay, time to get excited. We're on to number 7 on the list, and that is going to be Castlevania. So, anyone who knows, Castlevania is based on the games. Obviously, they've just kind of told one of the stories out of the many lore they have, and they've kind of combined some of them. So, this takes place with Trevor. He's going to be basically just kind of, doing what Belmonts do, fighting the undead and the hordes of evil and whatnot. But the thing is that in this realm, his ancestors have kind of taken a beating. He's the last of his name of Belmonts. And he just basically kind of gets treated like a bit of a goof. But then you're also introduced to Alucard, who is also one of the protagonists of the game series. And then you also come in contact with the sorceress, and I think this is one of the plot points to the games too. But essentially, the three of you would have gone to fight Dracula, and that's essentially what this series does. So initially it came out with 3 or 4 episodes, and then maybe sometime later they released the full season 1, and over time they've released season 2, and as far as I know there will be a season 3, but I don't know if it's been released yet. But Castlevania, it's got amazing action. I mean, the visuals to it are fantastic. The animation, like I said, is great, but the music has been taken from the original game and been given a little bit of a boost, let's say. But I'm telling you now, it is absolutely fantastic, worth listening to just for the soundtrack. The characters are funny, the action is awesome. There's a mixture of magic, swordplay, and obviously you've got so many different creatures and monsters in here to kind of keep it interesting, and it's probably one of the only video game adaptations that is worth mentioning in one way or another.
He shouldn't die. Yes, fuck you.
Okay, and on that one we're going to move on to number 6, which is One Punch Man, specifically Season 1. Okay, I'm going to keep this relatively short because I love One Punch Man, but I don't want to give too much away. It's just one season, and the really cool thing about it is, if you don't like anime, this kind of makes fun of all the traditional anime tropes, like, people with all these superpowers and looking goofy and whatnot, whereas in this, the main character is literally the strongest being in the universe, but he's so incredibly bored because of the fact that he's so strong and he's just got nothing else to do. He's been a hero for fun, he decides to become a professional hero, and he has to just take a few exams. So, he goes from being a goof to his game face being on, and then, people get shocked to see him in God mode. But then from there, the season progresses, but realistically it's about the other character development, and Saitama, the main character of One Punch Man, just kind of shows up at the end to kind of lend a hand and, save the world or do something goofy. But, at the Omega level threat, he's kind of the defense for it. And all the side characters, they're just kind of brought in to kind of take on the weaker villains and stuff like that. And the first season has just got a really, really great balance. Okay, number 5 on the list is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Okay, the Brotherhood is quite important because it is a more developed story. If you're going by the manga and stuff like that, you'll get that quite commonly enough. But if you are going to watch either Brotherhood or Full Metal Alchemist, go for Brotherhood. Like I said, the story is just that little bit more developed, and the story is absolutely fantastic. So it follows the story of two brothers. They go through the ultimate taboo in order to try bring back their dead mother. They try to reanimate her corpse. It doesn't go as, which is why it's such a massive taboo. But in the process of trying to perform this ritual, they accidentally, through equivalent and exchange, they end up giving away part of their flesh and blood in order to have tried to have, rebirthed flesh and blood. So the story just kind of takes place with them living in this world. They're just trying to, get their bodies back to the way they used to be. And while all this is happening, there's other people and agendas. There's so many behind the scenes army plans and subplots, coup d'etats, and eventual uprisings. So this story has absolutely everything. It's got about 5 or 6 seasons. It's great, the action and everything about it. So absolutely would recommend Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Get around to it. Again, it's one of those ones that you've probably been recommended already, but you've been recommended it for a good reason. So get to it if you haven't already. Okay, here we go with number 4 on the list, which is Death Note. Okay, so if you've never come across Death Note either on the anime or the live action film, the plotline is that this book called the Death Note falls from heaven or hell or the Shinigami realm, and essentially, when you write somebody's name in this book, they'll die. Now, there's rules to the book, and you can write stipulations on how this person dies, and the main character essentially comes into possession of this book through otherworldly means. He is quite intelligent and he uses this as an opportunity to essentially set up the world where criminals are punished and they fear to commit crimes. So Light Yagami essentially goes under the alias of Kira, and he starts to punish all of those criminals in Japan, and then slowly he spreads out toward the world. Well, the fun part about it is while he's doing this, the attention has been kind of gathered by the police and the media, and there's a detective on his case who goes under the alias of L. And basically, between Kira and L, there is this amazing cat and mouse game of detective and robber, or whatever way you want to describe it. So basically, it's just a nice cat and mouse between the villain and the main character. Which person is the main character, and where they stand is obviously open for interpretation. But essentially, the protagonist is, despite his good intentions, he's the villain. So it's really cool that you will see things from the perspective of the villain. He's got a genius mind, so and you're kind of getting the inside scoop of it. So it's really entertaining. It's just definitely worth a watch. If you've been recommended it and you still haven't gotten around to it, just give it a chance. I promise you, it's definitely worth it. Okay, here we go. Now with number 3 on our list, we're getting down into the fine numbers. Okay, so Attack on Titan is absolutely awesome. It's super worth a watch, okay? So beforehand, I would have maybe avoided recommending it to people because where the story was, there just wasn't enough answers, and it kind of felt like Lost syndrome. So if you'll remember Lost, it started out with a great pilot and just didn't know where it wanted to go. And for a long time, that's how I thought Attack on Titan was going. But really, in the last 2 seasons or so, they've given me enough answers whereby I'm reinvested and I'm really into it. Okay, so they've given us a lot of background, which means that if you started watching it right now, it's in its final season, and that would lead you straight on up to it. So I think now would be the perfect time to actually get stuck into Attack on Titan and maybe put aside any thoughts you've had about it not being worth the watch because you didn't get enough answers. So I think if you gave it a watch now, you'll get the answers you want, and you'll also enjoy it thoroughly because it's awesome. Okay, here we go with number 2 on my list for top anime for the haters of anime. X Hunter is possibly my favorite anime out there. I know it doesn't sound like it based on the fact that it's 4 on my list, but I have my reasons for it, okay? So, if you like training montages, you like that kind of stuff, then you will really appreciate this. The main character is Gon. He's a simple-minded, kind of hard-working character. Like if you give him a challenge, he'll work towards it, and he'll do his absolute best, and he's got essentially amazing potential. And then you have the secondary main character, who is Killua. Killua is the opposite of Gon. So Gon is the epitome of kind of simple-minded and hard-working, whereas Killua is more of a sly character who can also achieve the same things Gon can, but he goes about doing them totally different. So instead of being just hard-working, he'll be more clever about things and manipulative. Instead of just raw strength, he's got assassin powers, so he's quite stealthy and capable of a lot of dark actions that would never even cross Gon's mind. So they do approach things totally differently. The training between the two of them is brilliant, great friendship. Then it also goes through different arcs of story, and every single arc of this anime is absolutely great. You could say 1 or 2 of them fall down a little bit, but overall it's got great consistency. I don't think you could ever go wrong with this anime. If you like a light-hearted tone, it's got you covered, and if you like something that's a little bit darker, believe it or not, it also has you covered there. So give it some time, and trust me, it is definitely worth the watch. Okay guys, here we go. Finally, about time. We have number 1 on the list for top anime for people that hate anime. Here we go with Hajime no Ippo. Hajime no Ippo is my favourite anime without a doubt because it has the best pacing of any anime that I've ever come across. It follows basically a young kind of wimpy character who's in school getting bullied. He starts training at boxing just because he's sick of kind of not being able to do anything about it, and he meets somebody who basically makes him quite passionate about the sport. So he goes off, he becomes a professional boxer after a lot of training and a lot of hard work. The best thing about the show is the fact that it does dramatize boxing and do a lot of things that are unrealistic, but at the same time it does put a lot of emphasis into showing real technique, little counter strategies, and it does go into a lot of cool details. So it has some real elements that are obviously from real life. So from that perspective, I love it. But they do take liberties with drama and kind of certain punches look kind of like unrealistic at times, but for the most part like it is one of those that you could watch and they'll explain to you what a hook is, what an uppercut is, what a straight and a jab. Like they will teach the techniques of it. So like as someone who's interested in MMA, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu and that kind of stuff, I love it when an anime does that and when they do it properly and don't half-ass it. So Hajime no Ippo, great pacing, great story, great action. Because it follows a boxer, I think it would be great to introduce to somebody who maybe is a fan of MMA or even just straight up boxing. But if you've been looking for animes to recommend to your friends and they are not fans of anime as a general, try some of these 10 that I've recommended to you, and I'm betting you that at least half of them will land. And if they don't, well then I guess you're just going to be stuck watching anime alone forever, friend. Alright, on that note, thank you very, very much for watching all of this. If you enjoyed it, leave me a little comment. This took me quite some time. It's my first proper top 10 videos. So if you do like it, that'd be awesome. If you could leave a like, a subscribe, or whatever. I'll probably get some form of copyright claim, but we'll see what happens. This is a learning experience. So until the next time, and thank you for staying with me. Take care.